Big 12 Conference, we discussed quite a bit, of course, football and what they're doing, the teams who are trying to meet in Arlington in early December, but basketball is around the corner. Today, Media Day, Kansas City. Kendall Kaut covers college basketball in a great way for 365 Sports and Sic'Em365.com. And an award-winning attorney. That was just a few weeks ago, right, Kendall?
I appreciate the shout-out on that, Smokey. I was able to win Kansas Prosecutor of the Year, so quite happy, and congratulations to you on the Hall of Fame induction. Well-deserved honor. I can't think of anybody better who's really covered the game of high school football in Texas, Smokey, so very proud for you.
Thank you. Congratulations to you. All right, what if there's so many good teams, so many great coaches, a lot of fantastic players. What, in your opinion, were a couple of the storylines that what you heard today when you were there?
I primarily focused on Baylor today, Smokey. I think the focus for Baylor is how good they can be 1 through 8. Obviously starts at the top with the 2 Final Four participants in Norchad Omier, who's the Miami transfer, who will start at power forward, along with Jeremy Roach, who will begin the year at point guard for Baylor and has the ability to play some off the ball like he did at Duke as well. Both players have played in recent Final Fours in their college career. On top of that, VJ Edgecombe, there was a lot of hype around him, the incoming Big 12 Freshman of the Year. So Baylor obviously challenging themselves early quite a bit with Gonzaga and Arkansas, but I think that was one of the big storylines. And then what looms, I think, in the Big 12 is, can Houston finally break through and make a national championship game and win it all under Kelvin Sampson? And then can KU return to the precipice of where the Jayhawks expect to be after quite a disappointing season last year for Bill Self and company?
Kendall, you said Jeremy Roach will begin the year as Baylor's point guard. Why when you said move off the ball, but who else would replace him in that?
So, Paul, I didn't have anybody tell me that the replacement would happen, but I do feel like Rob Wright has played so well in those 2 scrimmages and is such a great guard that the pieces may eventually lead to a point guard by committee. KU under Frank Mason and Devontae Graham kind of played that lineup where Frank Mason brought the ball up, but Devontae Graham initiated a lot of sets. Baylor fans certainly remember the Davion Mitchell, Jared Butler era. I'm not saying there'll be Davion Mitchell, Jared Butler this season, 2 of the best guards in the history of the Big 12 Conference, but Rob Wright is so good, and he's so elite at breaking down defenses. Our own Ashley Hodge had mentioned previously that former NBA head coach Alvin Gentry said, oh, that guy's a Big 12 starter. And I think if he were at pretty much any program besides Baylor, KU, or Iowa State, maybe Houston as well, but I think the other 10 schools, he would clearly be the starting point guard. And I think by the end of the season, it might be a committee assignment, but I think he's going to get a lot of possessions as Baylor's point guard.
You had a lot of positive updates on Langston Love. 100% a go. We'll be ready for Gonzaga and other notes as well that people can read in our on the website and in the forum section. But what are your thoughts on just his contributions this year, Kendall? The meaning behind the full health and you know the big picture with all that with Love and Baylor.
Greg, I think he's essential. We talk all the time about schematics, whether it be football or basketball. But eventually in important games, it kind of comes down to the play's been destroyed because whatever team you play in the NCAA tournament or the Big 12 tournament has scouted you so in depth that everyone on the court knows what you're trying to do. In those moments, what matters is who can create plays. Whether, it was Davion Mitchell, Maceo Teague, Jared Butler in the championship era, Adam Flagler late making shots against Gonzaga a couple of years ago in South Dakota. For this Baylor team, Langston Love, I think, is one of the best shot creators on his own. I asked him today, where do you prefer to get the ball? And he laughed and said, anywhere, because he feels confident he can score from anywhere. And one of the big hindrances those last few seasons for Baylor has been the inability to have Langston Love in that round of 32 game. I think, and I think Scott Drew agrees, that if he had been healthy last season, Baylor would have had a pretty good shot to beat Clemson. And I think if he's healthy this season, Baylor will return to at least the second week into the NCAA tournament.
How, on his missing a lot of games, we know that a lot of it's bad luck. Is he injury prone or just it's been fluky stuff?
This is a great question, Smokey, where I think you can take either side. It's bad luck. I mean, the guy gets hit in the eye, tries to go, can't do it. But then he just keeps picking up these random injuries. I think, as somebody who luckily has not picked those up, I would prefer to be in Langston Love's shoes, where all you wonder about is, okay, my eye's going to get hit. Is somebody going to poison the cookie I'm about to eat? I prefer that livelihood as opposed to the livelihood of, oh my God, my knee's blown out again. My knee blew out again. My knee blew out again. That you at least know, okay, how many times can one man really be hit in the eye? So there's some hope that the eyes will be safe this season. And if not, maybe Langston Love will rock the frames on the court.
The old Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Who are the other guys that played?
Kurt Rambis.
Kurt Rambis.
Yeah, Kurt Rambis.
James,
Yeah.
I don't think Worthy did, but there's a few that did have the goggles when they played. Protect the eye. I mean, you can't do much without them. Kendall Kaut with us, Sic'Em365.com basketball analyst.
Kendall, when you, and I know you haven't, dove into the Big 12 as a whole yet, but this is a very deep league, especially from about 1 to 7. Kansas State has put a roster together that is really going to be tough. It's going to be long and fast and all of that. Who do you think are the ones built depth-wise with Baylor, like you said, 1 to 8, that can really hang throughout the season, which is attrition and injuries and all of that?
Paul, that's the great question, because certainly since Baylor won the national championship and KU followed it up with the national championship, so these last 2 seasons, I think the Big 12's been maybe fairly attacked that the NCAA tournament performance has not quite matched up to what the regular season performance has been for the Big 12. And if for folks who listen to Ashley Hodge and I did a podcast, when you look at Texas Tech's non-conference basketball schedule, if the Big 12 flames out in the tournament, people will point to non-conference schedules like that as opposed to Baylor and KU's non-conference schedule and say, that's why the league's not performing as well. Those specific teams, Paul, I think clearly Houston, it is national championship or bust this season. LJ Cryer, as we all know from covering him, fifth-year senior, Juwan Roberts, the talent they have there. Bill Self, obviously, with that early flame out, there are questions about KU, but they bring in A.J. Storr from Wisconsin. They have all 3 guys back, and I was there. Smokey and I were covering the NCAA tournament in 2021 when KU got pounded by USC and Hinkle Fieldhouse. Then they turned back around, bring back Christian Brown, Ochai Agbaji. Next season, they're national champions. So Bill Self, I think, hopes that formula exists. Arizona is probably that team that it's interesting to wonder about. We all covered that game in Dickies Arena when Baylor fell to North Carolina when Caleb Love made a lot of shots that day, along with R.J. Davis. Somehow this man is still in college, so's R.J. Davis. I think Arizona would probably say, like Houston, it's national championship or bust, because both programs probably feel like, this is the year we really think we can make a run at it. So I think those two are national championship or bust. I think for Baylor and KU, the goal is probably let's get back to a Final Four and hope something can kind of go right that final weekend.
I know, like Paul said, you're kind of wading into the Big 12 waters, but do you have any type of a feel on the 3 new head coaches at West Virginia, Oklahoma State, or BYU? Does one perhaps stand out more than the others, or one that you think can come in and make things more interesting?
Craig, I think clearly BYU is in an incredible spot to win both in football and in basketball. When you go to media days, I know you all are in press row during the Super Bowl sometimes, Smokey especially. Y'all cover events everywhere all the time. One thing that really grinds my gears about media days is everybody asks the same question. But the one kind of out of nowhere question, which can kind of hint to you something's up, is a lot of people would ask, hey, BYU seems to have a lot of money, Scott. Or they'd ask other coaches, I think they asked TJ Otzelberger as well at Iowa State, what's going on with BYU? That school has somehow, through the money they've been able to get from the Suns owner, as well as through the former Celtics GM, a lot of money together in the NIL fund. And it sounds like they're the favorites right now to land the number 1 prospect in next year's class, who I think wants to get the most amount of money that he can. Baylor had previously been in on him. It sounds like the check was going to be about as high as imaginable, and it sounds like BYU will win his services. So I think the NIL possibility, the NBA style that Kevin Young will play with, I think BYU is well set up both in football and in basketball. I remember there were jokes about Baptist gold back in the day when Baylor landed Jarrett Stidham. I think we're going to hear about Mormon gold or Mormon money or whatever alliteration we go with, because the good times are about to be rolling in Provo.
All right, this non-conference schedule, and Scott has not been afraid to pack it, but Gonzaga to open up with, and that was going to be a neutral game. It changed. Arkansas. St. John's with Pitino. Arkansas has a guy named what, Paul? Calipari?
Yeah.
Who's there? Tennessee with Rick Barnes and UConn. They're not bad either. They just win national titles. Is this their best non-conference schedule ever?
That's a great question, Smokey. I think it is, especially because the championship team did not get to play Gonzaga with that random COVID pause that happened in Indianapolis where they wouldn't let them play the game. They played Illinois that season, which Baylor ended up housing before Loyola took them out in the second round. So I think those 4 teams, along with St. John's, and especially Rick Pitino wanting to get some revenge for Baylor, coming back from down 20-plus points to win the battle for Atlantis in the 2016-2017 season. Gonzaga certainly wanting to beat Baylor, with Baylor beating them both in the national championship game. Then in a very cold fall day in South Dakota, I won't insult the South Dakota fans because, unlike the OU fans that come after me with some ammunition. So I don't want to attack them. But I think that you look at those 5 games, also looking at how the Spokane game going to have almost exclusively Gonzaga fans. Arkansas will travel very well to that game against Baylor. That neutral game is their second game in Dallas. So that is a very tough non-conference schedule for Baylor and a possibility to maybe take some lumps early in the season.
How big a dude is Omir?
Is he listed at 6'10"? I haven't looked at the new roster for where they're listed.
I don't know, but his shoulders, I happened to see him, but it was kind of from afar. He seems to be somebody that would play linebacker in football or what defensive end. He's an alpha.
I think so. I was at the Miami Texas game in the Elite Eight a couple of years ago. And yeah, he's a big gentleman. And that was probably Texas's last good shot to make it back to a Final Four. So you look at you want to take your chances when you have them. Credit to Norchad there with Miami. And now he has another opportunity with Baylor to make it back to that final weekend.
You brought this up earlier, and we appreciate your time, Kendall. But the Big 12, we hear about the strength. We hear about, in fact, the national titles, and that's great. Were you there? Did somebody make the comment, or did Jerome Tang make the comment that the Big 12 in men's basketball is like the SEC in football? Were you there when he said that?
I did not hear him say that, Smokey, but I do think that comment's very accurate. In fact, I think that the Big 12, though, clearly has, in my mind, those top 5 teams, those 5 that are ranked top 10 AP, but all the teams are ranked top 90 in KenPom. So whereas a lot of years the SEC, you go to Vanderbilt, anybody can win at Vanderbilt. The Big 12, I think, is built better than that. And to be fair to the SEC, I think any Big 12 team is better than Oklahoma football is when you look at basketball. And if you look at basketball as well, I think any Big 12 team is better than Oklahoma basketball as well. So, still waiting for an apology from the Sooner fans for what I said.
I knew that was going to come up. Either you were going to bring it up yourself or I was going to bring it up, but we were going to get to Oklahoma football somehow or another. And I think I asked you this the last time we brought it up, but did nobody ever took you up on that $1,000 offer, did they?
No, it was crazy, Craig, that I was told both, where can I place this bet? I want to place the bet now. This man doesn't even have $1,000 to his name. I'm getting married in January, so it'd be harder for me to make many of those bets I could have made back then. But not a single person took me up on the bet. So unfortunately, to all the charities of the world that could have been taking on Oklahoma's money, you won't have that because the Sooners did not believe in their team enough, which I think does speak to the intelligence of the OU fan base, recognizing with Lincoln Riley gone, the Valleys might have been coming.
I would not. I'm going to tell you right now, if I was sitting across in the courtroom defending my guy,
this guy's
with
assassin.
Kendall, I'd just be like, hey, listen, I know I told you I could win this thing, but he offered a deal, and if you can do 6 years, let's do that.
Yeah. No, he's just and he doubles down too. He doubles down on it. Kendall, great stuff as always. Thanks for jumping on with us today to give us a little perspective out of what happened in Kansas City, and cannot wait. What a season. What a bunch of great teams, and hopefully the Big 12 does better when they get to the tournament than they did last year. Thanks for your time.
Always appreciate it, gentlemen.
That's Kendall Kaut, Prosecutor of the Year in the beautiful state of Kansas.